Hello, welcome to the Teams We Can't Work Without Them, Learning How to Effectively Work in a Group presentation. My name is Carla Guadalupe, and I am an Associate of Strategy and Audit Programs, and my position audits all departments and helps find any deficiencies within the organization. I will be going over the importance of small groups. Later, you will be hearing from my colleagues, Pega Malakani, who will cover basic problem-solving procedures, and then Jesse Underwood, who will cover the importance of good leadership to work in an effective team. The general purpose of this presentation is to present a framework that will assist an organization in creating a successful, organized team to adequately train and solve problems to bring the best outcomes to the organization. So essentially, we want to teach you how to become the Disney standard for your organization by learning key effective communication styles that create a safe environment and that assist in solving major problems. The specific purpose. Teams. Nobody likes them, but sometimes we need them to help solve problems for an organization. Effective teams that can help solve problems grab people's attention to participate in groups, and quality leadership tips are what we will be covering during our presentation. After this presentation, our audience will be able to build an effective communication team that will be able to effectively identify and solve problems within the organization while providing the best possible outcomes. So, what exactly is a small group? This is what I'll be covering under the best small groups are small groups, the definition of a small group, the value of having a small group in an organization, and characteristics of a successful small group. So a small group communication involves a small number of people who usually engage in face-to-face interaction, actively working together toward a common goal. 3 characteristics of a small group include no less than 3 people, but usually no more than 5 people. Face-to-face interactions, and this helps during meetings to provide instant feedback and being able to provide quicker problem solving, and as well as actively working together to achieve a common goal. Values of teams in an organization. So a brief look at the business service indicates that a small group team may be one of the most often used communication methods within an organization. More than 70% of major organizations have team-based structures in part of their operations. Google actually conducted a 2-year study to find out what characteristics are common among their highest performing teams. They found that team styles of interaction is more important than the involved talent of the team members. So within a small group, there are 3 main groups. Because group communication is one of the most often used methods of communication within the organization, there are 3 categories of small groups that are generally used. So we have the learning groups, which are involved in seeking or sharing information like a department conference of the supervisor and the department employees. We also have the self-maintenance groups, and this group, they seek to inspire desirable attitudes, understanding, and communication patterns that rather than merely just inform. And then the problem-solving groups make a series of decisions in an attempt to solve a particular problem, such as team discussing how to expedite the delivery of a critical need, materials from a subcontractor who was running behind, or a team of engineers and technicians working on a computer software program. So the characteristics of a small group consist of being organized, having consistent training, discussing assumptions and opinions, finding solutions with comparing criteria and consequences, group thinking, cultural diversity, and different ways of communicating, virtually or in person. In the era of COVID, we all learned very fast that we had to go from in-person meetings and groups to virtual. And now we have a virtual etiquette on how to properly communicate and body language and making sure you have your camera on so people can really see what you're saying and understand what you're saying as well. Thank you so much for my part of the presentation. Here's Pega.
Hello everyone. I'm going to continue the presentation. My name is Pegah Malekani. I work in a private dental practice as a registered dental hygienist. Today I'm going to talk about the 6 essential steps of problem solving. In order to have a productive meeting, leader and team members should be trained in using problem solving procedure. Problem solving is basically the procedure that group use to move from the current problem to a desired solution or goal. The 6th step of problem solving include define the problem, research and analyze the problem, establish a checklist of the criteria, list possible alternatives, evaluate alternatives, and select best alternatives and discuss implementation. Step 1. Define the problem. A. Discuss the symptom size and impact of the problem. Step 1 is usually omitted since team members assume that everyone already knows exactly what the problem is. Define the problem. Defining the problem could be the only purpose of some meeting. If a problem is too vague or broad or unknown, discussing it would benefit the team member. Identifying the exact problem may also help to determine its impact. B. Write down the problem in a question form. Writing down the problem in a question form could clear everyone's minds about it. If a member cannot agree on a specific wording, that shows that the problem has not been defined clearly enough. C. Define any confusion term in the question. That could prevent any misunderstanding in the problem. Step 2. Researching and analyzing the problem. Step 2 is important since if it's omitted, members do not know enough about the situation to make an effective decision. A. List all the topics that will inform team member of information needed for them to reach an intelligent solution. B. Gather information. At this point, the leader should postpone further discussion until all members gather the necessary information like company records or personal opinion and more. C. Discuss information in organized fashion. That could also help them. Jumping from topic to topic is unproductive. Try to organize your team discussion in the following pattern. 1. Identify a topic. 2. Allow all members to give opinion at the topic. Ask if anyone wishes to add additional thoughts. Summarize the group's finding and identify the next topic to repeat until it's finished. Step 3, establish a checklist of criteria. Establishing a checklist of criteria is one of the most steps of all. Without criteria, the procedure would not be the basic problem-solving procedure. Brainstorm for possible criteria. Like, for example, we have to know what type of criteria, when in the procedure to establish the criteria, uh, what are the criteria and how to use them to reach the quality solution. B. Discuss each criteria in order. First, we have to remove any excessive information. To divide the group into must and want. Must are the ones that they have to stay the required items, and want are just the desired items. 3. Assign each want a rank or numerical weight. For example, 1 being important, 2 very important, and 3 extremely important. Step 4. List possible alternatives. List as many alternatives as possible that's suitable with your team time and budget limits. B. Use brainstorming, nominal group technique, which is NGT, or combination of these. Brainstorming is one of the methods that we could use, which is a spontaneous contribution of idea by all members of the team. NGT, on the other hand, is another method that we could use that allows all team members to have an equal chance of participating. This method actually has some advantage over brainstorming, or because that encourage all the shy member to participate, or we can use combination of both. Step 5, evaluating each alternatives. If the team member has done a good job determining the criteria, step 5 should be very simple. A, eliminate unacceptable alternatives. B, combine similar alternatives. C, eliminate any alternatives that do not meet all must criteria. D, compare remaining alternatives to want criteria and assign numerical values, and you can calculate the total too. Step 6, selecting the best alternatives. The best alternatives is simply the solution that best fulfill the group's criteria. In case of tie, select more than one solution, or create additional criteria, or use a consensus or compromise or vote. Consensus is basically the best solution because all members agree on one solution, and if not, we can use the compromise, or we can also have the vote option. Now, Jesse would continue the presentation and talk about the effective teamwork and good leadership. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessie Underwood, and I'm going to be speaking to you guys today about effective team leadership. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce myself. I work for Baptist Health Medical Group North as the provider data analyst, and basically I work in recruiting physicians and getting them contracts to work for us, as well as contract renewals and negotiations for doctors that we already have employed in our medical group. So this allows me to collaborate and communicate with nearly every single department within our organization. So in order to have an effective team, there must be effective leadership. And there was a great textbook quote from Walt Bettinger, the CEO of Charles Schwab. It stated that good management is not the same as good leadership. And he went on to describe good management as someone fulfilling their contractual obligations or their job description and things of that nature, whereas good leadership involves the hearts of those that follow you. So there are very big differences between the two. I'm going to be going over various leadership approaches that can be taken, and some of them are more well known surrounding behavior and situation, while there are some more recent approaches as well. So the first group is behavior approaches. The first one is trait. This is the belief that leaders are born with certain characteristics and qualities about them that make them a good leader. The second one is function. This is the belief that leadership is defined by a set of functions. So if you are completing a function within your group, you then assume the responsibility of some type of leadership. The third is three-dimension. This breaks it down into 3 different leadership styles. The first is authoritarian leadership, second is democratic, and then there's laissez-faire. So authoritarian, this is where the leader is the central authority figure within the group. They're the ones making all the decisions, and they then tell their followers or their team members what the decision is and what their next steps are. Whereas in democratic, there's 2-way communication as opposed to the 1-way communication on authoritarian. In democratic, they actually work together to collaborate and make a decision together as a group, not just the leader making the decision. And the last one is laissez-faire. This is a laid-back type of leadership where they're not actually involved in the decision-making whatsoever. The team members evaluate task functions and task completions within their own group. The second group is situational approaches. So in situational contingency, the leadership style in any situation is determined by 3 different things: the power of the leader, the nature of the task at hand, and then the relationship between the leader and the followers or team members. In situational leadership, this is the belief that good leaders can choose what leadership style they use in any situation. So if they see that a certain situation calls for a certain leadership style, they can change it to fit that situation. The last one is path goal. In Path Goal, this says that the leader assumes responsibility for providing assistance and direction in order for their members to achieve their goals. So they're basically illuminating the path for them to get to their goal. Here are some more recent approaches, the first one being normative decision. This defines good leadership as selecting the best decision-making strategy for your group. Another new approach is transformational. This describes this kind of leader as charismatic and inspirational, and they actually inspire their followers or team members to a high level of performance, enthusiasm, and ultimately a high level of loyalty. The last one is servant leadership. In this style, they choose to serve others first, and they do so by empowering and developing their followers in order to achieve their goals. So we've reached the application portion of our presentation. We'll be watching this funny video, and afterwards I'm going to explain how this ties into our presentation today.
Problem appears to be unsolvable. Maybe we could run some computer simulations.
There are too many variables. It would take forever.
I'd be missing something. Okay, let's start again. The movie is playing here at 7:20, here at 7:40, here at 8:10, and here at 8:45.
All right, these theaters have to be eliminated.
Why? They're state-of-the-art digital projection, 20-channel surround sound.
Yes, but they have no icy machines. Despite my aggressive letter writing campaign, I might add. What about the multiplex here? The seats are terrific. They have Twizzlers instead of red vines. No amount of lumbar support can compensate for that.
Well, it's going to take at least an hour to eat, and I don't see a Sheldon-approved restaurant proximate to a Sheldon-approved theater.
We could eat after the movie. Done. Acceptable. The delay would result in tomorrow morning's bowel movement occurring at work. Hang on. 7-Eleven here. We smuggle Slurpees, which are essentially ices, in under our coats after having a pleasant meal either here, or here.
Wow. I don't see how we missed that.
Excuse me, in what universe are Slurpees ices?
That's how we missed it.
Sheldon, would you be prepared on a non-presidential basis to create an emergency ad hoc Slurpee icy equivalency?
Oh, Leonard, you know I can't do that.
Okay, I guess we only have one option.
Yep, I don't see any way around it.
Bye, Sheldon.
See ya.
Then do. It was the only option.
So this is the application description of this video and how it ties into our presentation. So the first thing that you would notice is the small group. And I think this really shows the importance of small groups, because I could not imagine trying to make that decision with more and more people, because each person added adds a various numbers of factors, tastes, or things that they would want in order to make this decision. I also saw several leadership theories within this group. So the first one being situational leadership. In this situation, instead of one person taking the reins and making the decision, they were able to change their leadership style in order to choose which best fits the situation. So they chose to collaborate. All four of them worked together and communicated with one another in order to reach a decision. I also saw normative decision. I talked about this earlier, where it says a group is best led when they make the best decision-making strategy. So in this scenario, they almost exactly used these 6 steps of the problem-solving procedure that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So I think they did choose a really good decision-making strategy. And we could see the 6 steps here below, and I'm going to point out what I saw in the video. So the first one was to define the problem. So in this scenario, the problem was they needed to find a movie theater in order to watch a movie. Second is research and analyze the problem. In this scenario, they had a giant whiteboard map of the different movie theaters and places to eat in front of them, and had all the data they could possibly need in order to make a good decision. And as the video went along, there seemed to be a checklist of criteria beginning to form. So they wanted to eat before the movie, They wanted an icy machine at the movie theater, and they wanted red vines and not Twizzlers. So that became their checklist. But then possible alternatives started to be presented. So one was to eat dinner after the movie instead of before. And another alternative was to get Slurpees from a 7-Eleven and bring them into the movie theater instead of getting ices. So they evaluated their alternatives, and it seemed that Sheldon was not happy with the results that the alternatives would cause. So the group as a whole chose the unspoken alternative, which would be to just leave Sheldon at home and not take him to the movies with them. And it seemed to be the best alternative because in the end, even Sheldon agreed that that was the only solution to their problem. So, conclusion. The purpose of this presentation was to introduce you guys to a framework for building teams that are focused on identifying and solving problems in your own organization. So in this presentation, we discussed the importance of small team size, the necessary steps it takes to solve a problem with a team, and the importance, characteristics, and theories of effective team leadership. And we are just going to end it on this quote by Henry Ford. It says, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is a progress, and working together is success." And I think that kind of summed up what we talked about here today. Thank you.